Hello, and welcome everyone to the 2019 CalEITC Education and Outreach Grant Bidders Conference, and thank you for joining us. My name is Tricia Conti-Lutke, Program Analyst at the Department of Community Services and Development. Our goal today is to review the major elements of the Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, and walk you through the required attachments and evaluation process. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping tips. I would like to inform everyone that this webinar is pre-recorded. The recording and the PowerPoint slides for this webinar are posted on the CSD public website. For questions, please utilize the CSBG Division inbox at csbgdiv@csd.ca.gov. We encourage attendees to ask questions using this option as it will enable CSD to quickly capture questions and provide a response. The responses to all questions received by 5 p.m. on August 8th will be posted to the CSD public website by 5 p.m. on August 12th. As we go through this presentation, it may be useful to have the NOFA and application documents in front of you, as throughout the webinar we will refer to various pages of the NOFA. For your convenience, each slide also indicates on what page in the NOFA you can find the information we are referencing. Here are the topics that will be covered. We'll provide some background on the Earned Income Tax Credit and a description on the purpose of the NOFA. We'll review the projected timeline and the targeting requirements. Next, we'll discuss education and outreach grant activities and review available funding and target areas. We'll highlight the major grant requirements, and then we'll show the notice of intent to apply and walk through all required documents that make up the application package. We'll then cover the evaluation process CSD will use to score applications, and we'll finish with where to submit your questions. Here is a little bit of information about the Department of Community Services and Development. CSD's mission is to reduce poverty for Californians. Through a statewide network of nonprofit and public community-based organizations, CSD administers effective and innovative community services and energy programs that aim to help low-income families, individuals, and communities throughout the state achieve self-sufficiency and economic security to attain a higher quality of life. CSD administers California's federal funding share for the Community Services Block Grant, Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, Weatherization Assistance Program, and the Low-Income Weatherization Program. Most of you are very familiar with the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, but for those of you who may not be, let's review some background. The federal EITC is a benefit administered by the IRS that provides a cashback refund for low-income working individuals and families. EITC is widely regarded as one of the nation's most powerful tools for lifting low-income people out of poverty. In 2015, California established the first ever California EITC, or CalEITC, extending a new cashback credit to the poorest working individuals and families in the state. Now, in 2019, California has expanded CalEITC to further assist families facing poverty. The fiscal year 2019-2020 California State Budget Act more than doubles the investment in CalEITC to $1 billion, which will increase the number of participating households from 2 million to 3 million. The fiscal year 2019-2020 Budget Act impacted the CalEITC in 3 very significant ways. First, it expanded the credit to help low-income families with young children through a new $1,000 credit for families with children under the age of 6. Second, it significantly increased the average yearly amount individuals receive through the credit. And third, it expanded the eligibility to $30,000 to include full-time workers making the 2022 minimum wage of $15 an hour. Once again, this year, the Budget Act appropriated $10 million to the Franchise Tax Board to increase awareness of CalEITC and provide free tax preparation assistance. Of the amount appropriated, $5 million is designated for CalEITC education and outreach activities, and $5 million is designated to support free tax preparation assistance services. CSD has partnered with the Franchise Tax Board to make grant funds available for community-based CalEITC education and outreach efforts under this Notice of Funding Availability. A separate NOFA was released on Monday, July 22nd, to make grant funds available for free tax preparation assistance activities. The purpose of this NOFA is to 1. Support CalEITC education and outreach activities, and 2. Increase awareness of the free tax preparation assistance programs among low-income individuals and families. Activities must connect low-income people with local free tax preparation sites or online resources that help people file their taxes at no cost and claim the EITC credits. Also, funding must support new or expansion activities and may not replace or supplant existing funding sources. Now let's move on to the goal and objectives. As previously stated, the goal of this NOFA is to increase awareness about CalEITC and free tax preparation assistance services among eligible low-income California individuals and families. These efforts will also result in an increased awareness of the federal EITC credit. Our objectives: partner with trusted organizations in the community to implement effective education and outreach strategies. Deliver education and outreach that maximizes awareness of the CalEITC and free tax preparation assistance programs. Information should also be provided on the federal EITC. To target eligible populations residing in areas identified as having a high percentage of unclaimed credits. To deliver clear, accurate, and consistent information to target audiences, including culturally diverse, hard-to-reach populations, to increase awareness of CalEITC and the Free Tax Preparation Assistance Program in English, Spanish, and other languages as applicable. To motivate low-income individuals and families to file and receive CalEITC credits, which includes providing information on local free tax filing services. And to provide data on outreach efforts to support an evaluation of the most effective outreach strategies to reach the targeted populations. Now let's move on to the projected timeline. For those of you who are following along, we skipped ahead to pages 17 and 18 of the NOFA to the projected timeline. Please take a moment to review this timeline very carefully. Additionally, please note that the deadline for submitting questions is Thursday, August 8th. Please be sure to submit your questions to the CSBG Division inbox at csbgdiv@csd.ca.gov. Again, the responses to all questions received by 5 p.m. on August 8th will be posted to the CSD public website by 5 p.m. on August 12th. The following two slides depict the targeting activities that should be included in your outreach and education efforts. At a minimum, education and outreach activities must be provided in English and Spanish. All messaging delivered should be culturally sensitive and customized to the population in which education and outreach materials are being distributed. Activities should be conducted in different languages as appropriate to engage culturally diverse populations in the target area for which you are applying to serve. Messaging should also include how eligible Californians can access free tax preparation assistance services. Targeting should include Californians who have never claimed EITC. For 2019, the CalEITC income eligibility expanded significantly, which will allow more low-income working individuals and families to qualify for the credit. Education and outreach activities must target individuals and families with incomes at or below the CalEITC filing requirements based on the income limits established for the 2019 tax year. The maximum eligible earned income for 2019 has increased to $30,000 for all workers, regardless of their number of dependents. As you are thinking about your outreach strategies, please note that all applicants are required to detail their plans to reach CalEITC eligible Californians in the scope of work, CSD Form 171, and the application narrative template, CSD Form 171-ANT. We will review more thoroughly the scope of work and application narrative template a little later in this presentation. The left-hand side of the table includes the required messaging elements. All education and outreach messaging should be culturally sensitive and customized to the population in which the materials are being distributed. Messaging should also target those who are newly eligible to claim CalEITC and/or populations that will benefit from the 2019 expansion of the CalEITC or became newly eligible due to the prior year expansion of the credits, such as listed in the Target Populations column on the right-hand side of the table. Newly eligible populations now include all workers with incomes up to $30,000 annually. You may recall that young adults and seniors were added last year, and the Budget Act makes a special consideration for families with young children, giving them an additional $1,000 credit for having a child under 6 years old. Increased outreach efforts are necessary to ensure that eligible workers and their families receive the state and federal EITCs. The vast majority of CalEITC eligible workers are not required to file taxes because they are below the required income threshold. Yet these are the very workers who need the credit the most. Most tax filers eligible for EITC go to paid tax preparers. Therefore, a continued emphasis on expanding free tax preparation services will help ensure families keep all their money, further maximizing the poverty-fighting impact of the credit. Another targeting requirement is the geographic areas to be served. CSD identified 15 target areas shown in the table that will serve as geographic boundaries to ensure the greatest coverage across the state. Target areas are also outlined in the NOFA as Appendix 1, Map of Target Areas 2 through 14. Maps of Target Areas 1, statewide, and 15, rural, were not created. Feel free to email the CSBG Division inbox at csbgdiv@csd.ca.gov if you have any questions pertaining to these geographic regions. Potential CalEITC filers were calculated by using U.S. Census data to identify households that approximately meet the income thresholds to claim the credit. Also in Appendix 1, Map of Target Areas 2 through 14, identified zip codes in each targeted county. Applicants are not limited to only targeting those zip codes provided in Appendix 1. However, applicants must conduct education and outreach activities in the targeted zip codes. Target Area 15 will serve rural residents in counties identified as those with a general population of less than 100,000 residents. We will discuss Target Area 15 rural and Target Area 1 statewide in further detail in upcoming slides. The target area is the region where you will be proposing to conduct education and outreach strategies. If your organization plans to apply for more than one target area, you must apply for each of those target areas individually. For example, if you would like to serve Los Angeles County, Target Area 2, Orange County, Target Area 7, and statewide, Target Area 1, you are required to submit 3 separate applications. It is especially important to emphasize in your application the unique culture and needs of the regions you intend to serve. Listed on this slide are all CalEITC education and outreach activity types. Let's review each of these activities now. On the left side of the slide are activities required by all grantees. All awarded grantees from target areas 1 through 15 must conduct web activities. These activities include creating an EITC-specific website or web page, hosting a web banner on your organization's website, adding educational information and updates about the credits and free tax preparation assistance services to your organization's website, and providing links to CalEITC educational materials, toolkits, calculators, maps, etc. All awarded grantees must also conduct social media activities. Grantees will utilize social media outlets to disseminate educational messages, share success stories, and inform the public about outreach events in targeted counties and local communities. Social media channels may include, but are not limited to, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All organizations serving target areas 2 through 14, and this excludes statewide and rural grantees, must conduct canvassing activities. Canvassing options may include traditional door-to-door type activities or may be achieved through text messaging campaigns or phone banking to reach potentially eligible Californians. On the right side of the slide are activities that are recommended but not required, and they include media, collateral messaging, and group events. Education through media outlets includes, but is not limited to, print, radio, television, internet or website ads, and social media promoted or boosted ads. Also recommended is education and outreach through collateral messaging in multiple languages as appropriate for the target audience and demographics through the following mediums: flyers and brochures, direct mailers, and newsletters. Another recommended education and outreach activity is group events, which includes either hosting or participating in coordinated outreach events to engage groups of eligible people at places like community gatherings, resource fairs, mega events, local businesses, bus tours, educational forums, local free tax preparation services such as VITA sites, grocery stores, libraries, food banks, churches, healthcare clinics, schools, or city council meetings. You may use the other category for your own innovative ideas. Let's move on now to the 2019 CalEITC Education and Outreach Grant Funding allocations. A total of $5 million is available to specifically support CalEITC education and outreach activities. Funds will be awarded to grantees serving low-income individuals and families across the state. Funding allocations are based on 15 target areas, which are described in the following slides. An applicant may apply for more than one target area. Applicants must submit a separate application for each target area to be considered for funding and are expected to report separate outcomes for each target area awarded. Each application is considered a single, standalone application and should be customized to meet the needs of the population residing in the specific target area. If you are considering applying for multiple target areas, I want to emphasize that your applications must be distinguishable from each other and specifically tailored to the needs and population of the regions you are intending to serve. Education and outreach applicants must apply for the full contract award. For example, if you are applying for Target Area 5, Sacramento, you must apply for the full contract award of $225,000. If you are applying for Target Area 2, Los Angeles, the full contract award is $447,000, although the allocation of the region is approximately $1.3 million. Target Area 1, statewide grantees, will serve eligible residents across the state. The statewide grantees will provide coverage to the broadest audience, reaching the largest number of eligible Californians through a variety of outreach strategies. Grantees may focus on activities designed to make an impact on the largest populations, including, but not limited to, social media, hosting mega events, airing public service announcements, radio interviews, call center engagement, etc. Statewide grantees may also incorporate and oversee mini-grants through the utilization of subcontractors to target specific areas to have the largest impact possible. Listed on the slide are some suggested activities. Target Area 15 rural grantees will provide outreach to rural residents in counties identified as those with a general population of less than 100,000 residents as defined by the California State Association of Counties. Although there are over 100,000 folks residing in Butte County, it has been added to Target Area 15 to achieve geographic efficiencies in service delivery. Education and outreach activities should include a variety of grassroots outreach strategies to best reach eligible individuals and families residing in rural areas. Because the geographic distribution of eligible families living in rural areas varies considerably and can be quite vast, outreach strategies such as group events or canvassing to businesses may be more appropriate when compared to door-to-door canvassing efforts. Inappropriate uses of funds are detailed on page 14 of the NOFA. Funds may not be used to supplant existing federal, state, or private awards. Funds must be used for new or expanded EITC education and outreach activities. For example, if your current budget already includes funding to support a specific outreach strategy, these funds should not be used to supplant this activity. However, you may utilize these funds to expand this outreach activity. Funds may not be used for any political or legislative advocacy work, nor to promote your organization's name. This includes t-shirts, swag, etc. Any collateral material you produce may include your organization's logo, but it should not be the focal point of the material. All materials designed by grantees must be pre-approved by CSD. Funds may not be used to incentivize participation from partners, such as in a raffle, etc. Funds are not intended to support organizational overhead. Applicants should make every effort possible to minimize their overhead or administrative costs and target available funding towards providing direct services for eligible Californians. Costs are to be allocated for outreach and education activities only. Please keep these in mind when developing your budget. The following 3 slides capture the grant requirements. Grant requirements have been established to help ensure funding is used for the purpose it was intended. You will find the complete list of requirements located on pages 15 and 16 of the NOFA. Please read these requirements carefully. A few things to note about some of the points on the slide. First, funds must be used for cost-effective education and outreach activities having a measurable outcome that is trackable. For example, if your organization will conduct canvassing, the number of one-on-one interactions will need to be reported to CSD. Second, please ensure that you are targeting families with income at or below the tax filing limit. And third, the goal is to support new EITC education activities or expand current activities. For example, if you are only able to conduct door-to-door canvassing for one area, you will need to demonstrate how you will be expanding your door-to-door canvassing to other areas. And now we'll continue with grant requirements. All application packet documents must be completed and received by the due date. Activities and messaging must be conducted at a minimum in both English and Spanish, and all programmatic and fiscal reporting must be completed and submitted as required. And now let's go over what's new for 2019. Grantees must allot 10%, except for rural and statewide grantees, of award funding to increase awareness of local free tax preparation assistance services. If the education and outreach grantee's respective target area does not have a county-level free tax preparation assistance awardee, then the grantee must allot 10% of the award funding to coordinate with other local free tax preparation assistance sites or with the statewide free tax preparation assistance grantee. This requirement was made to ensure grantees are collaborating and coordinating efforts, and it helps education and outreach grantees meet the requirement that they provide information on free tax preparation assistance services. And finally, to finish up with our grant requirements. Grantees must participate in coordination calls with CSD and other awarded grantees as required. Grantees must collaborate with each other and free tax preparation assistance programs to optimize education and outreach efforts for overlapping taxpayers or geographic areas. Grantees must provide personally identifying data of individuals that were contacted during outreach efforts to demonstrate the most effective outreach strategies to reach the targeted population. More information on this requirement will be forthcoming. Insurance requirements may include self-insurance, workers' compensation insurance, commercial or government crime coverage, which is a fidelity bond, general liability insurance, and vehicle insurance. Specific requirements will be outlined in the awarded applicant's contract. The anticipated contract term for each awarded CalEITC Education and Outreach contract shall be from October 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. And new for 2019, please note that at CSD's sole discretion, each contract may be extended for one additional year through June 30th of 2021, depending on funding availability. However, please understand that CSD has no obligation to exercise its right to extend the contract. To be eligible for funding under this NOFA, applicants must meet the following requirements, which are also listed on page 15 of the NOFA. You must be a tax-exempt organization, including private, nonprofit, or public organization that qualified for and received an IRS determination letter confirming the organization's tax exemption. A local government agency, a federally recognized Indian tribal government, or a business entity registered with the California Secretary of State. You must be eligible to receive public funds and be in good standing with federal and state administering grant issuing agencies. Now let's review the minimum qualifications. To support CalEITC education and outreach activities, applicants must demonstrate knowledge of the CalEITC and free tax preparation assistance programs. Applicants must have 3 years of experience successfully providing, coordinating, and implementing education and outreach activities that serve low-income populations. However, your experience does not need to be in consecutive years or the most recent past 3 years. Additionally, CSD will allow the experience of staff and planned subcontractors to help organizations meet the 3-year minimum requirement. Applicants must have established and trusted relationships with community partners serving low-income populations, preferably with partners who have extensive EITC and free tax preparation assistance experience. Applicants must have the capacity to implement and deliver all elements of the proposed activities as described in the narrative response to this application. Applicants must have the ability to provide education and outreach activities appropriate to the language and culture of the targeted populations. For example, the culture and language of San Francisco County differs greatly from the culture and language of Fresno County, so applicants must detail how they will cater their proposed education and outreach activities to the uniqueness of the target area. Applicants must have the ability to collect and report reliable, valid, and timely data for all proposed activities. During the contract term, grantees will be required to provide progress reports. Applicants must explain their infrastructure for reporting in a timely manner, and if they will be utilizing subcontractor services, how will you obtain information from subcontractors in a timely manner so that it can be reported up to CSD. We will now transition to the documents that applicants must submit to CSD with their application. On this slide is an image of the Notice of Intent to Apply. The Notice of Intent to Apply is a fillable PDF document. We ask that you please complete and submit this form by the close of business on Friday, August 9th. The Notice of Intent is not required, but CSD strongly encourages applicants to submit the form. By submitting a Notice of Intent, applicants assist CSD with estimating the number of evaluators needed to score applications. The Notice of Intent can be either mailed, hand-delivered, or emailed to CSD, and all address options are listed on the form. If you are considering applying for multiple target areas, you only need to submit one Notice of Intent with the desired target areas checked. The application packet requirements, shown on this slide and also on page 18 of the NOFA, serves as a checklist for applicants. Please be sure your application includes all elements listed on this form and stacked in the order shown. Your application packet must include the application cover sheet, the application narrative template, your scope of work, all budget forms, including the budget summary and the budget detail, your timeline, your subcontractor information worksheet, 2 letters of reference, the payee data record, and the contractor certification clauses form. The application cover sheet will serve as the top document when mailing completed application packages to CSD. Please include all relevant information. The applicant name is the full legal name of your organization. No acronyms, please. The target area includes a drop-down menu for your convenience. If you are applying for more than one target area, you must submit a separate application, which means you will need a separate cover sheet for each target area for which you are applying. Please indicate a primary point of contact. This may be different than your organization's executive director. The primary point of contact will be the best person for CSD to contact regarding your application. Under application certification, an authorized individual must type their name, title, and provide a wet signature and date at the bottom of the form. By signing the application certification, your organization acknowledges that it possesses all necessary requirements. Let's move on now to the evaluation process. The documents listed in the table shown will be reviewed and scored by an evaluation team. Scoring criteria is designed to assess the quality of the proposed project and to determine the likelihood of success. The application narrative template is worth a total of 55 points, with an additional 10 preference points available, and the scope of work is worth a total of 45 points. Applicants must receive a final score of at least 70 points, not including the preference points, to be placed into the rank order to be considered for funding. The evaluation team will use a consensus scoring methodology where one score is awarded per the team's collective assessment. Applications will be scored against the desired qualifications as listed in Section C3 of the NOFA. Applicants will then be ranked based on a total score achieved by target area. For example, Target Area 2 Los Angeles County applicants will be ranked against only other Target Area 2 applicants. The scores from each subsection will be combined to determine the applicant's total score. Now let's review the application narrative template. Now we will review the application narrative template. The application narrative template is comprised of 5 separate sections that total up to 70 points. The application narrative template includes the following sections: experience conducting education and outreach, valued at 20 points, organizational capacity, valued at 25 points, trusted community partners, valued at 10 points, past activities conducting education and outreach, valued at 5 preference points, and languages other than English and Spanish, also valued at 5 preference points. Next, we will be discussing each section of the application narrative template. Applicants will utilize the first section, Experience Conducting Education and Outreach, to provide CSD with information on an applicant's education and outreach experience. Applicants must provide as much detail as possible to show they possess the institutional framework necessary to conduct a successful education and outreach campaign in the target area selected. Provide information on activities pertaining to low-income individuals in your indicated target area and operational capacity to conduct such activities. The narrative response for this section must follow the structure indicated under Applicant must include the following and address all 3 points in the order indicated. For example, first, an organization would detail experience, what campaigns have been conducted in several languages, and then operational readiness. Your organization must address these 3 points in the order presented. Now, let's move on to organizational capacity. Applicants will utilize the section Organizational Capacity for CalEITC education and outreach activities to provide CSD with information on an applicant's organizational capacity to specifically conduct CalEITC education and outreach activities. As indicated on the previous slide, there are various points that need to be addressed in this section. Applicants must follow the organizational structure shown and address all elements in the order indicated. A few things to note for organizational capacity. 1. The description of the geographic area should include at a minimum the zip codes identified in Appendix 1, Map of Target Areas 2 through 14. 2. The service delivery strategy to be used should include why the strategy is the most effective type for reaching the proposed population in the target area. 3. Efforts that will be made that will help ensure applicants are reaching various eligible Californians must include how grantee will reach all of those listed. 4. For an applicant's expertise, staffing, and partnerships, an applicant could identify in detail those staff that will ensure the success of this program. And 5. For data collection, all applicants are required to submit progress reports in order to be reimbursed for the education and outreach activities they conduct. Please describe your organization's methods for data collection and reporting. Now, let's move on to trusted community partners. Applicants will utilize the third section, Trusted Community Partners, to provide CSD with information on an applicant's non-funded community partners. Community partners are those unpaid partners collaborating with the applicant to reach all eligible Californians. Partners should have EITC and free tax preparation assistance experience and should have established trusted relationships with low-income community members. For the purpose of this NOFA, community partners are defined as non-funded partners with whom your organization has a positive past working relationship. Applicants need to provide the name, location, purpose of the organization, and a description of how the partner will help them achieve their scope of work. Now let's move on to past activities. Up to 5 preference points will be awarded to an applicant who demonstrates experience in providing CalEITC specific education and outreach. Applicants who have specific experience working on CalEITC education and outreach may utilize the past activities conducting EITC education and outreach table to receive these preference points. Please provide a brief description of your experience providing various education and outreach activities. For example, as shown on the slide, if an applicant conducted canvassing in 2017, 2018, and 2019 for CalEITC, they would indicate the detail and individuals reached in the corresponding years. Now let's move on to additional languages. Applicants who will conduct CalEITC education and outreach in languages other than English and Spanish may utilize this fifth section, Languages Other than English and Spanish, to receive 5 preference points. Here you will indicate the additional languages in which you will conduct education and outreach activities. This concludes our review of the application narrative template. Please keep in mind that all 5 sections of the application narrative template are limited to a total of 20 pages. We're now moving on to review the 2019 CalEITC NOFA Supplemental Workbook, a Microsoft Excel workbook that includes the scope of work, CSD Form 171, the instructions for the scope of work, the budget summary, CSD Form 171A, the budget detail, CSD Form 171B, instructions for completing the budget, the timeline, CSD Form 171TL, and the subcontractor information sheet. All documents are worksheets contained within the workbook and accessible by using the tabs on the bottom of the workbook as indicated by the blue arrows. Please keep in mind the following parameters for the supplemental workbook as a whole. For the supplemental workbook, there is no page limit. Please use whole numbers for the projections. Indicate not applicable or NA if not conducting that activity. For projections and description of activities to be conducted, please follow the definitions in the scope of work instructions on the Instruction tab. For narrative, please follow the directions indicated in the instructions on the Instructions tab. Here are some additional details to consider while developing your scope of work. For the sake of this NOFA, outcome is defined as the result, effect, or consequence that will occur from carrying out the education and outreach activity that is directly related to this NOFA's goal and objectives. Outcomes must be achievable within the contract funding term. CSD will evaluate the effectiveness of the applicant's plan for tracking and measuring its performance toward reaching the estimated number of eligible Californians. There are 8 categories contained within the scope of work. Let's begin with the web category. To begin with the scope of work, please fill out the contact information at the top of the form. Your organization's name, your organization's representative, the representative's telephone number and email address, the target area in which you are serving, and the requested grant amount. Once this information is completed in the scope of work, these fields should auto-populate throughout the workbook. Now let's review web projections. Please utilize the definitions before inputting any projections. For example, for CalEITC website hits, an applicant should provide the number of visits to a web page fully dedicated to CalEITC. Note that this is not website hits to the organization's main page. Let's consider the example of 100,000. This projection indicates that by definition, the applicant projects that between October 2019 and June 2020, its CalEITC website will witness 100,000 views. Now let's review description of activities to be conducted. Like the application narrative template, the description of activities must follow the order indicated on the instructions. Applicants type the description of the form where it reads, "Type text here." First, an applicant would provide a summary of updates that will be made to its website during the grant. Second, an applicant will list website updates that will occur, who they will target based off the targeting requirements set forth in the NOFA, and where they will target these individuals. Third, an applicant will indicate in what language outreach will be conducted. And fourth, any additional information that did not fit into the items above. Remember that web is a required activity of all grantees. Moving on to the social media category, applicants should follow the definitions and instructions for entering projections and the description of activities to be conducted. Applicants must type their narrative in the order indicated in the instructions. Applicants must indicate the total number of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media posts they will conduct during the contract term. Remember that a post is the number of times applicants plan to post to the social media site. This is very different from likes and shares, etc. As mentioned under Web, applicants must provide a complete breakdown of activities following the order indicated under the definitions and instructions. For example, if your organization will conduct more posts via Twitter than Facebook, explain why this is the best social media outreach tactic for the target area, how you define your performance measures for Twitter, how many people you plan to reach via Twitter, and how you will track and report this information to CSD. This is your opportunity to include those innovative ideas you may have to conduct activities under the social media category. Please be as detailed as possible with your proposal. And remember that social media, along with web, is a required activity of all grantees. Now let's move on to canvassing. As with web and social media, under canvassing, applicants should follow the definitions and instructions for entering projections and the description of activities to be conducted. Applicants must indicate the total number of one-on-one interactions and the number of individuals who will receive target messaging during the contract term. A few things to consider for canvassing. Interactions are not necessarily individuals reached. For example, if while canvassing the canvasser speaks to more than one member of the same household, this is counted as one interaction. Applicants must provide details of canvassing expected in targeted zip codes in the target area. Indicate how many times your organization plans to canvass various areas and which ones. If your organization plans to canvass outside the targeted zip codes, an explanation is required. Applicants must also document the number of individuals who will receive text messages if they will conduct outreach like this. Please note that this is not the number of text messages sent, but rather the number of individuals that will receive text messages. Applicants must also demonstrate to whom they are sending these text messages and maintain documentation as examples of best practices. Please keep in mind that canvassing requires a trusted messenger to deliver a one-on-one meaningful message that will motivate folks to change their behavior. In this case, the behavior we're seeking to change is for folks to file their taxes utilizing free tax preparation assistance services and claiming the credits. As a reminder, web, social media, and canvassing are all required activities for all target areas 1 through 15. Please be mindful that your scope of work includes, at a minimum, these 3 categories. We certainly don't want applicants to be disqualified because an incomplete application was submitted. Now let's move on to media. Under the media category, Again, applicants should follow the definitions and instructions for entering projections and the description of activities to be conducted. Applicants must indicate the total number of impressions achieved during the contract term for types of advertising. If your organization will not be conducting a particular advertisement, mark 0 in the projected number of impressions column. If your organization will not be conducting media outreach at all, leave all the projections blank and type NA or not applicable under description of activities to be conducted. A few things to highlight for media. 1. Impressions are unique visits or views per reporting period. 2 examples are provided in the instructions for clarity. When running any type of advertisement campaign, the company conducting the advertisement can easily provide organizations with the unique visits or views. 2. For each type of advertisement, your organization should conduct detail as to why it will be effective in the target area and increase the number of eligible Californians claiming the credits. As mentioned earlier, media covers a wide range of activities, such as newspaper ads or printed ads, ads run on the side of a bus or transit ads, or a banner that appears on a website, just to name a few. Now, let's move on to collateral messaging. Under the collateral messaging category, again, applicants should follow the definitions and instructions for entering projections and the description of activities to be conducted. Applicants must indicate the number of flyers or brochures distributed and the number of individuals who will receive direct mailers. If not conducting a category, mark 0 in the projected number column. A few things to highlight for collateral messaging. In terms of individuals receiving flyers or brochures or direct mailers, the projection numbers should include the number of people reached. This means that leaving a stack of materials at events or locations is not applicable for this category. Materials should be handed or mailed to a specific person to be counted. In the description of activities, detail how many times various collateral messaging activities will be conducted. Again, if your organization will not be conducting collateral messaging outreach activities, leave all the projections blank and type NA or not applicable under description of activities to be conducted. Let's move on now to group events. Under the group events category, again, applicants should follow the definitions and instructions for entering projections and the description of activities to be conducted. Applicants must indicate the total number of group events it will conduct during the contract term. If your organization will not be conducting group events as an outreach strategy, leave the projection blank and type NA or not applicable under description of activities to be conducted. A few things to highlight for group events. In the description of activities, indicate how many group events will take place in the targeted and non-targeted zip codes and provide details and metrics for each. For example, if your organization plans to speak in front of 7 separate city council meetings, you would indicate 7 group events. You would then indicate what outcomes you hope to gain from speaking at the city council meetings, who may be attending the city council meetings, how you will define a successful speaking engagement, and your plan for tracking the results and reporting them to CSD. Please be as specific and detailed in your description of activities as possible. Now let's move on to free tax preparation assistance, education, and outreach. New for 2019, grantees must allot 10% of award funding to increase awareness of local free tax preparation assistance services. If the education and outreach grantee's respective target area does not have a county-level free tax preparation assistance awardee, then the grantee must allot the 10% of the award funding to coordinate with other local free tax preparation assistance sites or with the statewide free tax preparation assistance grantee. This requirement was made to ensure grantees are collaborating and coordinating efforts, and it helps education and outreach grantees meet the requirement that they provide information on free tax preparation assistance services. Use this section to provide your organization's methods to increase awareness and promote the utilization of free tax preparation assistance sites such as volunteer income tax preparation or VITA sites or tax counseling for the elderly and others. Under the Other category, if applicable, applicants should indicate categories and provide projection numbers. In the definitions and instructions, applicants should provide information based on the prompts shown here on the slide. Clear definitions and instructions will assist CSD with better understanding why an applicant believes a particular other activity is innovative and valuable. This concludes our review of the scope of work. We are now going to move on to the budget summary and budget detail forms. The remaining forms we will review, starting with the budget forms, are not scored but are required components of the application package and must be completed and submitted. The purpose of the budget summary form, CSD Form 171A, is to provide CSD with information on an applicant's proposed budget. The total of each budgeted activity should be included on the budget summary for each applicable line item fully supported on the budget detail page. If you are conducting education and outreach strategies other than what is listed on the budget summary, identify those outreach strategies on the rows labeled Other. Remember, the budgeted line items should correspond with the activities listed on your scope of work, and the total budget amount must match the requested amount as indicated in the example by the red circles. Please note, indirect cost rates should not be listed in the Other category. Administrative costs should be included within the individual activity. For example, if you have staff time allotted to canvassing, we would expect to see a proportionate amount of administrative costs in the canvassing category for staff. Please recall that it is stated in the NOFA that the purpose of this funding is not to support your organization administratively. We ask that you be very cognizant of this and limit your administrative costs. We want to see as many of these dollars as possible go towards engaging folks in this effort, while at the same time understanding that there are costs associated with executing this effort. Now let's move on to the budget detail form, CSD Form 171B. The purpose of the budget detail form, CSD Form 171B, is to provide CSD details to back up information the applicant provided on the budget summary form. Applicants enter each activity expenditure into rows under each corresponding education and outreach activity. This is an Excel worksheet where under each education and outreach activity, applicants may add as many rows as necessary. A few examples have been provided on the form to give you an idea of what CSD is looking for in terms of details. For example, an explanation is only needed for expansion activities, not for new activities. Our reason for this is to ensure that you are not using this award to supplant or replace your existing funds. The intention is to build upon what you already have in place, not replace one funding source with another. Refer to the Budget Instructions tab for guidance and further clarification. At the time of the evaluation, your budget detail is reviewed but not scored. Therefore, you will not receive any feedback on your budget until you are an awarded grantee. Please be aware that even after awards have been decided, CSD may ask you to provide additional information in the budget detail, and you may be asked to make changes before contracts are distributed. The budget detail total amount, like the budget summary total, must match the requested amount of the grant. And again, it's important that you limit your administrative expenses so that this funding is maximized for the purpose that it is intended, to reach as many eligible Californians as possible. However, if you do have administrative costs, this is where those costs would be fully detailed. Now let's move on to the timeline, CSD Form 171TL. The purpose of the timeline is to provide CSD with information on an applicant's timeline for how, and more importantly when, it will achieve the goals indicated both in the scope of work and in the application narrative template. Applicants should utilize the timeline to outline when each activity will occur as indicated in the scope of work. Some activities could include metrics while others may not. For example, if you plan to post 105 social media posts between October 2019 and May 2020, and you know exactly when you will post them, you can indicate how many posts your organization will make every month. For this activity, however, or others, you may not have specific metrics. You may also simply provide a brief overview of activities. Again, for example, under canvassing, An applicant that does not know how many interactions will take place yet could simply indicate when canvassing will take place in various zip codes. These examples are just to give applicants an idea of what we are looking for. CSD uses the timeline to monitor grantee activities to ensure the grantee remains on track to fully expend the contract amount. Applicants may expand rows of the timeline in order to allow more space for details. The Subcontractor Information Worksheet is used to provide CSD with information of an applicant's planned subcontractors. The top of the form includes instructions on how to complete this form. CSD recognizes that not all subcontractors may be identified by the due date of applications. Therefore, awarded applicants will need to update this form once final subcontracts have been awarded. Applicants may expand rows of the Subcontractor Information Worksheet in order to allow for more space for details. If you plan to utilize subcontractors, we should also see this detailed in your budget. A completed payee data record is required of all applicants. Even if you have filled out the payee data record in the past for CSD or another state agency, you must complete a new one for this funding. A few things to consider with this form. First, as indicated in the box outlined in red at the top under 2, enter your organization's full legal business name, email address, mailing address, and business address. Second, as indicated in the box outlined in green at the top under 3, enter your organization's federal employer identification number and check the box that corresponds to your business type. Everyone applying for this grant should be exempt. The red arrow indicates where you will note that your organization is a tax-exempt nonprofit entity. Third, as indicated in the box outlined in blue at the top under 4, check that your organization has a permanent place of business in California or is qualified through the Secretary of State to do business in California. And lastly, as indicated in the box outlined in yellow at the top under 5, provide the name, title, a wet signature, and telephone number of the individual completing this form. And finally, please date the form. Now let's move on to the contractor certification clauses. A completed contractor certification clauses form CCC for 2017 provides CSD with proof that your organization abides by certain requirements for doing business with the state of California. For a full list, refer to the form. This form is 4 pages and must be completed in its entirety and contain a wet signature. We're now moving on to the application review process, starting with the application pass-fail review. All applications will undergo this initial pass-fail review process. The pass-fail evaluation considers whether the application was submitted according to the submission instructions, whether it falls within the prescribed funding limits for the target areas, and whether all application package documents are included, completed, and signed. The elements for the application pass-fail review are listed on this slide. They're listed on page 20 of the NOFA, and they're included in the instruction document list located on the CSD website. CSD strongly suggests having someone within your organization double-check to ensure you included all the application package documents and followed all the requirements above before you submit your completed application. CSD also asks that you do not staple any part of the application or attachments. Applicants passing the pass-fail review will move on to the review process. The review process consists of an assessment by an evaluation team using consensus scoring methodology. Scores will be awarded based on the team's collective scoring assessment. Applicants must receive a final total score of at least 70 points to be placed into the rank order to be considered for funding. Applications proposing to serve a specific target area will only be ranked against other applications proposing to serve the same target area. Again, prior to its submission, we strongly encourage you to double and triple check your application packet that it is complete and signed by the authorized person. If you intend to apply for more than one target area, please remember that each of your applications is a single standalone document and should be customized to meet the needs of the population residing in the Pacific target area and must be distinguishable from one another and specifically tailored to the cultural needs and regions you are intending to serve. Please also be mindful of the August 19th due date. No extensions or exceptions will be allowed. We are now nearing the end of our presentation. Regarding questions, CSD has compiled an FAQ document to address general inquiries and areas of clarification. The FAQ document can be found at Appendix 2, Frequently Asked Questions. CSD will respond to all questions sent to the CSBG Division inbox at the email address shown on the screen. Applicants may submit questions regarding any part of the NOFA or the NOFA process. Here are a couple of points to recall. Questions are due no later than 5 p.m. on August 8th. CSD will post questions and answers to the CSD public website by August 12th. Notices of intent to apply are due by August 9th, and completed applications are due by 5 p.m. on August 19th. This concludes the 2019 CalEITC Education and Outreach Bidders Conference. The Program Development Unit at CSD thanks you for your interest in this funding availability.